You have probably been told that when someone pulls away, it means they don't care. You've been taught that distance always means rejection, silence always means indifference, and hesitation always means the end. But life is far more complex than that. Human beings are not simply driven by love. They are driven by the stories they carry, the fears they inherited, and the emotional patterns they have repeated for years. Some people don't run because they lack feelings. They run because feelings become so powerful that they no longer know how to handle them. That changes everything. The question isn't whether someone experiences love. The real question is whether they are willing to transform because of it. Real commitment begins the moment someone decides that protecting themselves is no longer somewhat important than building a meaningful connection. Understand this. Every person develops emotional habits. Some move toward connection whenever life becomes difficult. Others instinctively move away. Neither pattern defines their worth. It simply reveals what they learned about safety. If someone spent years believing vulnerability leads to pain, then closeness itself can feel threatening, even when it is exactly what they desire. That is why you must learn to see beyond surface behavior. When someone who normally escapes conflict begins staying in difficult conversations, something extraordinary is happening. They are choosing courage over comfort. That choice is never easy. It requires confronting years of emotional conditioning. It demands strength that most people never recognize, because transformation rarely looks dramatic. It often looks like a text sent instead of ignored, an honest conversation instead of silence, or a decision to remain present instead of disappearing. These moments matter. They reveal that love has become stronger than fear. Too many people spend their lives chasing reassurance. They believe that if they say the perfect words, become more attractive, or sacrifice enough of themselves, another person will finally stay. But love cannot be built through desperation. Lasting relationships are never created by convincing someone to choose you. They are created when two people independently decide that growth is more valuable than fear. Never underestimate the power of emotional safety. People open their hearts when they feel accepted, not controlled. They reveal their deepest selves when they experience trust instead of pressure. Your greatest influence in any relationship is not your ability to persuade someone. It is your ability to become a source of peace rather than chaos. When your life is driven by confidence instead of insecurity, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting to every emotional shift. You stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. You stop allowing another person's temporary fear to define your permanent value. That is freedom. And freedom is magnetic. The strongest relationships are built by two whole individuals who choose each other every life. Not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to. When someone begins letting you see the parts of themselves they have hidden from everyone, else pay attention. Most people reveal their achievements. Very few reveal their fears. When someone starts telling you about their childhood wounds, their insecurities, the moments they regret, and the dreams they are afraid to pursue, they are offering something more valuable than perfection. They are offering trust. Trust is the true foundation of lasting love. Anyone can be charming for a few weeks. Anyone can create excitement in the beginning. But sustained vulnerability requires incredible courage. It means someone believes that being authentic is finally safer than pretending. That is where genuine intimacy begins. But remember this carefully. You cannot force another person's transformation. Growth is always a personal decision. No amount of chasing can heal someone who refuses to face themselves. No amount of sacrificing can replace the work that every individual must do within their own quad. Your responsibility is not to rescue another person. Your responsibility is to become the strongest, healthiest, most purposeful version of yourself. When you do that, everything changes. You stop negotiating your standards. You stop accepting inconsistency as love. You stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional maturity. Instead, you begin recognizing the difference between temporary attraction and lifelong commitment. Real commitment is remarkably ordinary. It shows up in phone calls returned, promises kept, effort repeated, respect maintained, presence offered again and again, especially during life's hardest seasons. People often wait for grand romantic moments while overlooking the quiet evidence of genuine devotion. For Forever is rarely built through dramatic gestures. Forever is built through thousands of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. Every single day, someone chooses honesty. Every single day, someone chooses patience. Every single day, someone chooses understanding instead of blame. That is what creates an unbreakable bond. The greatest relationships are not those without challenges. They are those where both people repeatedly choose growth over ego. Think about your own life. Every breakthrough you've ever experienced required leaving behind an older version of yourself, whether it was your career, your health, your confidence, or your purpose. Transformation demanded discomfort. Relationships are no different. Love asks you to become someone stronger than your fears. It asks you to replace assumptions with communication. It asks you to replace pride with humility. It asks you to replace control with trust. These choices are never easy, but they are always worthwhile. There comes a moment when someone realizes that running no longer provides peace. Distance no longer feels like freedom. Isolation no longer protects the heart. Eventually they understand that the greatest risk is not loving deeply. The greatest risk is allowing fear to prevent a meaningful life. That realization changes everything. Because once someone discovers that authentic connection creates strength instead of weakness, they begin making different decisions. They start showing up. They start listening. They start apologizing. They start growing. Not because someone forced them to, because they finally recognize that love is not something to escape. It is something worth becoming better for. Never settle for words that are unsupported by actions. Anyone can promise forever. Character proves forever. Consistency proves forever. Integrity proves forever. The people who truly value you will continue choosing you through inconvenience, uncertainty, and change. Their commitment will not depend on perfect circumstances. It will depend on deeply rooted values. And those values begin with self-respect. The quality of every relationship you experience will always reflect the quality of the closely relationship you have with yourself. If you believe you are worthy of honesty, you will expect honesty. If you believe you deserve respect, you will protect your boundaries. If you believe your life has purpose, you will never shrink yourself just to keep someone's attention. That confidence becomes the foundation upon which lasting love is built. Because real love never asks you to lose yourself. It inspires you to become even more of who you were created to be. The greatest gift you can offer another person is not perfection. It is your willingness to grow. And the greatest gift they can offer you is the same. When two people commit themselves to becoming wiser, kinder, stronger, and more emotionally free, they create something that circumstances cannot easily destroy. That is what forever truly means. It is not the absence of fear. It is choosing love despite fear. It is not never making mistakes. It is choosing repair after mistakes. It is not perfection. It is persistent growth guided by purpose, integrity, compassion, and unwavering commitment. The people who stay forever are not the ones who never struggled with vulnerability. They are the ones who finally decided that love was greater than every wall they had ever built. And every day thereafter, they continued making that same courageous choice. There is a moment in every meaningful relationship when fear and love collide. Most people believe that the strongest person is the one who never hesitates, never struggles, and never feels uncertain. But real strength is not the absence of fear. Real strength is choosing connection when every instinct tells you to run. That is one of the clearest signs of deep commitment. When someone who has spent years protecting themselves begins staying present during uncomfortable emotions instead of escaping them, something profound is taking place. They are no longer allowing fear to make every decision. They are allowing love to become stronger than the habits that once controlled their life. Understand this carefully. Every human being develops patterns designed to avoid pain. Some people become louder when they feel threatened. Others become silent. Some fight. Others withdraw. None of these reactions necessarily reveal the depth of love within a person. They often reveal the depth of fear they have carried for years. The mistake most people make is judging someone's heart by their first reaction instead of watching whether they are willing to grow beyond that reaction. Growth always begins where comfort ends. Think about every breakthrough you've ever experienced. Whether it was improving your health, building your career, strengthening your faith, or becoming more confident. Every transformation required you to move beyond what felt safe. Relationships demand that same courage. Emotional intimacy asks you to remove the armor that has protected you for years. It asks you to risk being misunderstood. It asks you to speak honestly when silence feels easier. It asks you to remain present when disappearing seems like the simplest solution. That is why staying matters so much. When someone remains in a difficult conversation instead of shutting down completely, they are making a powerful statement. They are saying, this relationship is more important than my temporary discomfort. They may not communicate perfectly. They may stumble over their words. They may need time to gather their thoughts. But notice the difference. They come back. They continue the conversation. They choose resolution instead of permanent distance. Those choices reveal far more about commitment than dramatic declarations ever could. Many people spend their lives searching for someone who never struggles, but such a person does not exist. Every individual carries invisible battles. Every heart has experienced disappointment, rejection, or loss. The goal is not to find someone without fears. The goal is to find someone who refuses to let fear become the permanent ruler of their never decisions. That is where genuine transformation begins. When love becomes meaningful enough, it starts challenging old beliefs. A person who once believed vulnerability was dangerous begins discovering that honesty creates deeper connection. Someone who once believed independence was the only path to safety starts realizing that true strength includes allowing another person to stand beside them. These shifts rarely happen overnight. They happen through repeated choices made during ordinary moments. Every difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to grow. Every misunderstanding becomes an opportunity to build trust. Every disagreement becomes an opportunity to practice patience instead of pride. People who build lasting relationships are not those who avoid discomfort. They are those who learn that discomfort is often the doorway to greater understanding. They stop viewing conflict as proof that love is failing. Instead, they begin seeing healthy challenges as invitations to become wiser, more compassionate, and more emotionally mature. There is another lesson that changes everything. Never confuse temporary distance with permanent rejection. Sometimes people need space to understand what they are feeling. What matters most is not whether they experience moments of uncertainty. What matters is whether they choose to return with greater honesty, greater openness, and greater determination to strengthen the relationship. Actions always reveal what words cannot. Anyone can promise forever during moments of excitement, but remaining emotionally present during moments of tension requires character. It requires discipline. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to say, I don't have all the answers, but I refuse to stop trying. That mindset transforms relationships. It replaces blame with responsibility. It replaces assumptions with honest communication. It replaces emotional walls with emotional bridges. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this. You cannot inspire someone to stay by abandoning yourself. The healthiest relationships are created when both people are grounded in self-respect, purpose, and emotional stability. Your responsibility is not to chase someone into loving you. Your responsibility is to become a person whose peace is stronger than fear, whose confidence is rooted in character, and whose love is expressed through consistency. Because in the end, the deepest form of commitment is not found in flawless behavior. It is found in the quiet, courageous decision to stay present when leaving would be easier. That decision, repeated over time, becomes the foundation of trust. And trust, built one courageous moment after another, is what turns ordinary love into a bond that can endure for a lifetime. One of the greatest misconceptions about love is that it is measured by intensity. People often mistake emotional highs for emotional security. They believe that grand promises, passionate words, or overwhelming affection are proof that a relationship will last forever. But emotions rise and fall. Excitement changes with circumstances. What truly separates temporary attraction from lifelong commitment is not intensity. It is inconsistency. Anyone can show up when everything feels exciting. Anyone can express affection when life is easy. The true measure of commitment is revealed in ordinary moments, when there is no applause, no dramatic romance, and no perfect circumstances. It is found in the decision to keep showing up, to keep communicating, to keep investing, even when life becomes demanding. Consistency is the language of genuine love because it transforms promises into reality. Think about the strongest structures in the world. They are not built in a single day with one massive effort. They are built brick by brick, each piece carefully placed upon another until a solid foundation exists. Relationships work the same way. Every honest conversation becomes another brick. Every kept promise becomes another brick. Every moment of patience, understanding, and reliability strengthens the foundation until trust becomes stronger than fear. This is why actions will always speak louder than words. Words can inspire, but actions create confidence. Someone may tell you that you are important, but if they disappear every time life becomes uncomfortable, their behavior tells a different story. On the other hand, someone may not always know the perfect words to say, but they continue calling, continue listening, continue making time, and continue choosing the relationship. Those repeated actions reveal a heart that is committed to something greater than convenience. There is incredible power in becoming dependable. Dependability creates emotional safety. When people know they can count on you, they stop wondering where they stand. They no longer feel they must earn your attention every day. Instead, they begin relaxing into the relationship because consistency removes unnecessary uncertainty. That is one of the greatest gifts anyone can offer another human being. Too many relationships are damaged not because love disappeared, but because predictability disappeared. One day there is affection, the next day silence. One week there is commitment, the next week emotional distance. This cycle creates confusion because the human mind naturally searches for stability. When consistency is missing, insecurity begins to grow. Doubt replaces confidence, and fear replaces peace. True commitment breaks that cycle. It says you do not have to wonder whether I care. My actions will answer that question. This does not mean perfection. Every person has difficult days. Every relationship experiences moments of misunderstanding. Consistency is not about never making mistakes. It is about remaining committed to repair after mistakes occur. It means choosing communication over avoidance, responsibility over excuses, and solutions over blame. That is emotional maturity. Real love does not ask, how do I avoid discomfort? It asks, how do I strengthen trust? Every time someone keeps their word, trust grows. Every time they follow through on a promise, security grows. Every time they remain present during challenges instead of disappearing, confidence grows. These small moments seem ordinary, yet they are creating something extraordinary beneath the surface. They are teaching both people that the relationship is built upon character rather than emotion alone. Remember, emotions are temporary visitors. Character is a lifelong companion. When someone develops the habit of acting with integrity, regardless of how they feel in the moment, they become a source of stability. They no longer allow temporary frustration to determine permanent decisions. Instead, they choose principles over impulses. They understand that lasting relationships are sustained by discipline just as much as they are sustained by affection. This truth extends beyond relationships. Every meaningful achievement in life is the result of consistent effort. Great health comes from daily choices. Financial success grows through disciplined habits. Inner peace develops through continual self-awareness. In the same way, extraordinary love is created through repeated acts of kindness, honesty, patience, and reliability. The most beautiful relationships are rarely the loudest. They are often quiet. They are built on thousands of unnoticed decisions made every single day. A message sent because someone mattered. A promise honored even when it required sacrifice. A conversation finished instead of avoided. A hand extended instead of withdrawn. These moments may seem small, but together they create unshakable trust. Never chase occasional affection while ignoring consistent character. Temporary excitement can capture your attention, but dependable love transforms your life. The person who truly values you will not leave you guessing about their intentions forever. Their consistency will gradually answer every question that words alone never could. Because in the end, forever is not proven by one unforgettable moment. Forever is revealed through countless ordinary moments in which someone quietly, faithfully, and intentionally chooses you again and again. That steady choice, repeated over time, is one of the clearest signs of a love that is deep enough to last. There comes a defining moment in every meaningful relationship when conversations move beyond the surface. Until that moment, it is easy to talk about work, daily routines, favorite movies, was future plans. Those conversations are comfortable because they require very little emotional risk. But real connection begins when someone starts revealing the parts of themselves they have spent years protecting. That is where trust is born. That is where lasting love begins to take root. Many people believe that love is measured by how often someone says, "I love you." Those words have value, but they become truly meaningful only when they are supported by vulnerability. It is one thing to express affection. It is another thing to reveal your deepest fears, your greatest regrets, your childhood wounds, your private insecurities, and the dreams you are almost afraid to speak aloud. When someone chooses to let another person into that hidden space, they are offering something far more valuable than polished words. They are offering the truth of who they are. That kind of openness does not happen by accident. It happens when trust becomes stronger than fear. Think about what it means to lower emotional walls that have existed for years. Those walls were not built overnight. They were often formed through disappointment, rejection, betrayal, misunderstanding, or painful experiences that taught someone it was safer to hide than to be fully known. Over time, protecting the heart became a habit. Silence felt safer than honesty. Distance felt safer than closeness. Control felt safer than vulnerability. Then something begins to change. Instead of keeping every struggle hidden, they begin sharing what is really happening inside. They admit when they are afraid. They acknowledge moments of self-doubt. They speak about failures they have never discussed with anyone else. They stop pretending to be perfectly strong and begin allowing themselves to be authentically human. That is not weakness. That is one of the greatest demonstrations of courage a person can make. It takes tremendous strength to remove a mask that has protected you for years. It requires believing that the person standing in front of you will value your honesty instead of using it against you. This is why vulnerability is never simply about talking more. It is about choosing authenticity over self-protection. The remarkable thing about genuine vulnerability is that it changes both people. The one who shares discovers that honesty does not automatically lead to rejection. The one who listens discovers that compassion creates safety. Slowly, fear begins to lose its grip, and trust begins to grow stronger with every sincere conversation. But trust is not built through one emotional evening. It is built through consistency. Every time someone shares another piece of their inner world and discovers they are accepted, rather than judged, confidence grows. Every honest conversation becomes another reminder that love is not earned by pretending to be perfect. Love grows through being fully known and still deeply valued. This is why listening is just as important as speaking. Many people are eager to be understood, yet they rarely create an environment where another person feels safe enough to open up. True listening is more than hearing words. It is giving someone your full attention without rushing to fix them, criticize them, or compare their experience to your own. It is allowing another person to feel seen without fear of condemnation. When people feel emotionally safe, revealing the parts of themselves they once believed had to remain hidden forever, that is when intimacy becomes real. Remember, the deepest relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on acceptance. Every person has flaws. Every person has fears. Every person carries memories they wish they could rewrite. Lasting love does not require the absence of those imperfections. It requires the willingness to walk through them together with honesty, patience, and compassion. There is also an important lesson for your own life. If you spend all your energy trying to appear flawless, you will eventually become exhausted. Pretending is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. Real freedom comes when you realize your value does not come from maintaining a perfect image. It comes from living with integrity. The people who truly belong in your life are not attracted to a performance. They are drawn to authenticity. When someone begins inviting you into their inner world, treasure that privilege. Do not take it lightly. Trust is one of the rarest gifts a human being can offer. It cannot be demanded, purchased, or rushed. It is earned through patience, consistency, respect, and unwavering character. Because in the end, lasting love is never built by two people pretending to be fearless. It is built by two imperfect people who choose honesty over hiding, understanding over judgment, and connection over emotional distance. The moment someone begins sharing the deepest parts of their heart is not simply a conversation. It is a declaration that they are choosing trust over fear, and that choice is one of the strongest signs that their love has grown deep enough to envision a future that lasts. One of the most powerful moments in any relationship is not when someone says they love you, it is when they begin changing the habits that have kept them emotionally distant for years. Words can inspire hope, but transformation creates certainty. Anyone can make a promise in an emotional moment. Not everyone is willing to confront the fears, beliefs, and behaviors that have shaped their life. When someone chooses growth over self-protection, they are making a decision that reaches far beyond the relationship itself. They are deciding that becoming a better person matters more than remaining comfortably the konguzla. Human beings naturally seek safety. We all create routines, beliefs, and emotional responses that protect us from pain. At first, those defenses may serve a purpose. They help us survive disappointment, betrayal, or heartbreak. But what once protected us can eventually become the very thing that prevents us from experiencing genuine love. Walls that kept pain out also keep connection out. Emotional distance that once felt like strength slowly becomes loneliness disguised as independence. There comes a moment when a person realizes that the greatest danger is no longer getting hurt. The greatest danger is never allowing themselves to experience the depth of life and love they were created for. That realization changes everything. Growth always begins with awareness. Before someone can change, they must first recognize the patterns that are limiting them. They begin asking difficult questions. Why do I shut down when conversations become emotional? Why do I pull away when someone gets close? Why do I assume vulnerability will lead to rejection? Why do I believe distance is safer than connection? These questions are uncomfortable because they force a person to look inward instead of placing all the responsibility on someone else. But every breakthrough starts with honest reflection. The strongest people are not those who never struggle. The strongest people are those who refuse to let yesterday's pain dictate tomorrow's wick as possibilities. They understand that the past may explain their behavior, but it does not have to define their future. Real growth requires humility. Humility is the willingness to admit, there are parts of me that need healing. That statement is not a sign of weakness. It is evidence of wisdom. Pride insists that everything is someone else's fault. Humility accepts responsibility for personal growth. It recognizes that while we cannot always control what happened to us, we can choose how we respond moving forward. This principle applies to every area of life. A person who wants better health must change daily habits. A person who wants financial freedom must change financial decisions. A person who desires stronger relationships must change the ways they communicate. Listen, forgive and trust. Lasting results are always connected to lasting transformation. The beautiful thing about love is that it often becomes the motivation for this transformation. When someone truly values another person, they begin asking, how can I become someone who contributes more peace, more honesty, and more stability to this relationship? Their focus shifts from protecting their ego to strengthening the connection. That is a remarkable change. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations, they begin participating in them. Instead of assuming the worst, they begin seeking understanding. Instead of disappearing during conflict, they remain present with patience and respect. These actions are not accidental. They are evidence of a heart that has chosen growth over fear. But remember something important. Growth is never linear. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when old habits try to return. There will be days when fear whispers that hiding is easier than opening up. What matters is not achieving perfection overnight. What matters is continuing to move forward despite imperfections. Every step toward greater honesty matters. Every sincere apology matters. Every effort to communicate more clearly matters. Every decision to stay instead of run matters. These repeated choices gradually reshape character. They build emotional resilience. They replace unhealthy patterns with healthier ones until new behaviors become natural rather than forced. There is also a lesson here for your own journey. Never stop growing simply because someone else has begun changing. Your greatest responsibility is not to monitor another person's progress. It is to continue developing your own character. Become someone who leads with integrity, listens with compassion, and responds with wisdom. Growth attracts growth. Emotional maturity creates an environment where meaningful relationships can thrive. The truth is that love alone is not enough to sustain a lasting partnership.
Love must be supported by intentional growth. Without growth, fear continues to dominate.
Without growth, misunderstandings multiply. Without growth, old wounds continue controlling present decisions. But when two people commit themselves to becoming wiser, kinder, more patient, and more emotionally aware, they create something incredibly powerful. They build a relationship that is not dependent on perfect circumstances, but on shared commitment to continual improvement. In the end, one of the clearest signs of deep and lasting love is not flawless behavior. It is the willingness to become a better person for the sake of a healthier future. When someone chooses transformation instead of self-protection, they are saying through their actions, "This connection is worth more than my old fears." And that decision, repeated day after day, becomes the foundation of a love that is strong enough to endure life's greatest challenges. There is a truth that transforms every relationship, yet very few people fully understand it. You cannot control another person's heart, but you can completely transform the energy you bring into every interaction. The quality of your presence shapes the quality of your relationships far more than your attempts to persuade, chase, or convince. When your life is rooted in confidence, emotional stability, and self-respect, you create an atmosphere where genuine connection has room to grow. But when your actions are driven by fear, desperation, or the need for constant validation, even the strongest feelings can become buried beneath pressure and uncertainty. Many people unknowingly believe that love is earned by giving more, sacrificing more. They're proving their worth over and over again. They think that if they say the right words, solve every problem, or become everything another person wants, they will finally receive the security they long for. But lasting love has never been built on losing yourself. It has always been built on bringing your strongest, healthiest, and most authentic self into the relationship. Your energy speaks before your words ever do. People can sense whether you are acting from confidence or fear. They notice whether your kindness comes from genuine generosity or from the hope of receiving approval. They recognize whether your patience is rooted in strength or whether it hides anxiety about William being abandoned. While they may not consciously identify these differences, they feel them. Human beings respond not only to what is said, but also to the emotional atmosphere surrounding every conversation. That is why inner peace is so powerful. When you are emotionally grounded, you stop reacting to every moment of uncertainty as if it were a crisis. You no longer interpret every delayed response as rejection or every quiet moment as evidence that love has disappeared. Instead, you remain centered because your confidence is built upon something deeper than trust. Something deeper than this kind of stability changes everything. Instead of chasing, you communicate with clarity. Instead of demanding reassurance, you trust your own value. Instead of trying to control outcomes, you focus on living according to your principles. This is not emotional distance. It is emotional maturity. One of the greatest gifts you can offer another person is the freedom to experience the relationship without feeling manipulated, pressured, or responsible for your emotional well-being. Healthy love invites. It does not force. It inspires. It does not control. It creates safety by allowing both people to grow without fear that every mistake will be met with condemnation or emotional chaos. Think about the people who have had the greatest positive influence in your life. Chances are they made you feel accepted while still encouraging you to become better. They did not motivate you through fear. They inspired you through their own example. Their confidence gave you confidence. Their peace helped you discover your own. That same principle applies to relationships. People are naturally drawn toward those who are emotionally secure because security creates safety. This is why healthy boundaries are acts of love rather than acts of rejection. Boundaries communicate self-respect. They quietly declare, I value myself enough to protect my peace. And I value this relationship enough to be honest about what strengthens it and what weakens it. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that allow trust and respect to flourish. Never mistake chasing for commitment. Chasing often comes from the fear that you are not enough. Genuine commitment comes from knowing your worth while continuing to show kindness, patience, and integrity. There is a tremendous difference between pursuing someone with confidence and pursuing someone because you believe your happiness depends entirely upon their response.
True confidence understands that your identity is larger than any single relationship.
When you know who you are, you stop abandoning your values to gain acceptance. You stop shrinking your dreams to make someone else comfortable. You stop sacrificing your peace in exchange for temporary attention. Instead, you become someone who gives love freely without losing yourself in the process. That kind of strength is incredibly attractive because it reflects wholeness rather than neediness. It also creates the conditions where real transformation can occur. When another person experiences consistency, emotional safety, and respect instead of pressure, they often become more willing to lower their own defenses. They begin opening up because they no longer feel they must protect themselves from judgment or emotional instability. Your calm presence becomes an invitation rather than a demand. But always remember this: your responsibility is to embody these qualities, not to guarantee another person's response. Every individual must choose their own path. You cannot make someone grow before they are ready. You cannot love someone into becoming someone they have not chosen to become. What you can do is live with integrity, maintain your self-respect, and continue becoming the person you were created to be. In the end, the direction of every meaningful relationship is influenced by the energy each person brings into it. Confidence creates trust. Emotional stability creates peace. Healthy boundaries create respect. Authenticity creates connection. When your life is built upon these principles, you no longer seek love from a place of emptiness. You offer love from a place of abundance. And that is the kind of presence that has the power to inspire commitment, deepen connection, and create a relationship strong enough to endure the changing seasons of life. One of the greatest myths about lasting love is that it is sustained by feelings alone. People often believe that if the emotions are strong enough, the relationship will naturally take care of itself. But emotions, no matter how beautiful, are constantly changing. There will be days when affection feels effortless, and days when life brings stress, exhaustion, disappointment, or uncertainty. If a relationship depends only on emotion, it will rise and fall with every circumstance. But when it is built upon daily choices, it develops a strength that emotions alone can never provide. Forever is not created in one extraordinary moment. It is created in thousands of ordinary moments. It is found in the decision to say good morning with kindness, even after a difficult week. It is found in listening with patience when you would rather defend yourself. It is found in offering forgiveness when pride encourages resentment. It is found in choosing honesty when hiding the truth would seem easier. These small decisions rarely make headlines, yet they become the foundation upon which a lifetime of trust is built. Think about every meaningful achievement in your life. Success in any area is rarely the result of one dramatic action. A healthy body is built through daily discipline. A successful career grows through consistent effort. Strong character develops through repeated choices that align with your values. Relationships follow the same principle. Extraordinary love is simply ordinary love practiced with extraordinary consistency. That is why commitment is far more powerful than temporary emotion. Commitment says, I choose to honor this relationship even when circumstances are less than perfect. Commitment says, I will communicate instead of assuming. Commitment says, I will seek understanding before judgment. Commitment says, I will protect what we are building instead of allowing pride to destroy it. These choices may appear simple, but they require tremendous maturity. Many people wait for the perfect feeling before taking positive action. Wise people understand that positive action often creates the feeling they desire. When you choose kindness, affection often grows. When you choose gratitude, appreciation increases. When you choose patience, understanding deepens. Action frequently leads emotion rather than following it. This principle has the power to transform every relationship. There will always be seasons when life becomes demanding, responsibilities increase, unexpected challenges arise, dreams take time to accomplish. During those moments, it is easy to become distracted by everything that seems urgent while neglecting what is truly important. Yet lasting relationships survive because both people intentionally continue investing in one another even during life's busiest seasons. They continue making time for meaningful conversations. They continue expressing appreciation instead of assuming it is understood. They continue encouraging one another's dreams.
They continue showing respect even during disagreement. These habits may seem small, but they quietly strengthen the emotional foundation of the relationship day after day. One of the greatest demonstrations of love is reliability. It means that your words and your actions remain aligned.
It means that people do not have to wonder whether they can trust you because your character answers that question before your mouth ever does. Reliability creates security, and security allows love to flourish without constant fear. But there is another truth that is equally important. Choosing forever does not mean ignoring problems. It means addressing problems together instead of allowing them to create permanent division. Every relationship experiences misunderstandings. Every partnership faces seasons of challenge. The difference between relationships that endure and those that fall apart is often found in one simple decision. Do we treat each other as opponents, or do we treat the problem as the opponent? When two people stop trying to win arguments and start trying to strengthen the relationship, everything changes. They replace blame with curiosity. They replace criticism with compassion. They replace resentment with forgiveness. These choices do not erase every difficulty, but they prevent temporary problems from becoming permanent wounds. There is also a lesson here that reaches beyond relationships. Every day you are becoming someone. The habits you practice are shaping your future. Every act of integrity strengthens your character. Every moment of self-discipline increases your resilience. Every decision to respond with wisdom instead of impulse prepares you for greater opportunities and deeper connections. The person you become is ultimately more important than the circumstances you experience. When you develop a heart that values honesty, respect, humility, and consistency, those qualities naturally overflow into every relationship you build. Love stops being something you occasionally express. It becomes part of who you are. And perhaps that is the deepest meaning of forever. Forever is not simply staying together for a long time. Forever is continually choosing the values that allow love to grow. It is waking up each day with the understanding that relationships are living investments, requiring attention, care, and intention. It is recognizing that trust is earned through repeated acts of integrity, that respect is strengthened through daily kindness, and that commitment is renewed every time two people choose understanding over ego. In the end, the strongest relationships are not built by people who never faced fear, disappointment, or hardship. They are built by people who repeatedly chose faith over fear, growth over comfort, humility over pride, and love over self-protection. Day after day, decision after decision, they prove that forever is never a single promise spoken once. It is a commitment lived consistently, faithfully, and intentionally until those daily choices become the unshakable legacy of a love that truly lasts.